Nominations in the category Light Entertainment Performance are Paul Eddington, Yes Minister, Nigel Hawthorne, Yes Minister.
I do think he was a little sad over the fact that Paul and Nigel were always nominated for the Best Actor in a television, and he never got it.
Forgive me, Minister.
So why do you think Nigel keeps winning all the BAFTAs and I don't get one? I said, because he's got longer speeches than you.
However, he found recognition in other ways.
Remember he's telling me that he'd gone over to Australia once and Bob Hawke met him at a function, and Bob Hawke said to Paul, would you like to come along to one of the rallies? And Paul said, yeah, I'd love to. You know, because he loved political stuff. He was very politically orientated. So he got in the car and they buzzed off, and he said, suddenly I was in this arena with something like 60,000 people. And Bob Hawke said, you don't want to listen to me, this is the real Prime Minister. And Paul said he was thrown onto the stage and forced to improvise.
People expected him to make remarks about current policy. I mean, quite seriously, which of course he never did. He always made a joke of it.
It's a very good question, and it's no, seriously, it's a question that, as I've said on previous occasions, in a democracy, is the sort of question that ought to be asked.
He really did think he was something to do with the government, as well as a well-known actor, because he loved that. He revelled in the sort of rather grand thing of being feted as a VIP rather than just a lovey.
After suffering with bad health for many years, he was diagnosed with a rare form of skin cancer in 1987.
He handled his illness with incredible dignity, in that he didn't say, look at me, poor me, and make a fuss about it. And he knew for years he was ill. But he absolutely, I mean, very few people knew until later. And then he just said, well, I'm ill. And that's it. And he was not sorry for himself at all. But he didn't camouflage it or make a big hurrah about it. But that was very much his life.
He was never defeated, but he was dashed at first at each thing. And then he used to say, well, it could be worse. I can deal with that. I can deal with it. It was an acceptance. And his life was an acceptance, really, of one thing after another. As the next thing happened, he would just swallow hard and say, no, I can bear that. I can bear it.
You would never, ever have known, if you didn't know him, that he was ill. And he was very, very ill.
Despite his increasing health worries, he decided to reunite with Richard Briers in David Story's play Home.
He said, you'd love to do this with me. And I think because we were very fond of each other and he knew his time was limited, it would be nice to do a play, maybe his last, and it was his last, with a friend rather than just another actor. So he did it, but made the terrible error when we toured Home of forgetting that we were in a sad play, but to the public we were still a sort of geriatric Tom and Jerry. The result was I was getting letters all the time. They didn't write to him because I think they still thought he was a Prime Minister or something. But they wrote to me as a sort of chum, saying, why are you doing this dreary, dreadful, depressing play? How could you? Because they came for a laugh. And we forgot 20 years on that we were Tom and Jerry still and would be forever.
A friend of mine, actually more of an acquaintance really, was introduced to George VI at Waterloo.
Waterloo?
We didn't want him to appear in the newspapers too much, looking like that, and it was getting worse. It became public before we were ready for it to become public.
I rang them at that time, and they had these people outside, and I said, you know, you're going to have to open that door and interview them and tell them. You know, you really have to tell them.
And that's when the first pictures of him went out, so that people could actually see that he was ill. I mean, the fact that being an actor, it had to hit his face, I found very hard to take.
I think when he did Face to Face towards the end, I thought there was a great act of bravery. Extraordinary control. I mean, talk about British stiff upper lip. He really had that.
Paul Eddington, you're one of our best and best-loved actors.
And I found it very hard, and I found it very Paul. He was there saying, what do you want, you know, if you're going to ask me to do this, I'm very pleased to tell you, and this is me, and this is how I am. And he wasn't sentimental in the slightest little bit, and he wasn't being brave either.
People are kind enough to say how brave and all the rest of it. I'm not brave at all. I do wish very sincerely that I hadn't got this problem. But as I have it, there's no alternative but just to say, yes, I've got it.
His faith was the main thing which supported him. I don't think he could have got through it the way he did without it. We all did what we could. We all rallied. We tried hard, but basically it was his own acceptance of the fact that he was not going to get better and he had better prepare to die.
The actor Paul Eddington has died at the age of 68 from a rare form of skin cancer.
The real sadness about his illness was that it robbed us of 10 years of great performances.
I have been very lucky to have quite a few meaningful, in that they are very special relationships that I've worked with in my working life. And his is certainly up there in the top, way up there.
I remember him with great affection and great respect.
He made me laugh. He made me laugh a lot.
Well, he was a great personal friend. He was godfather to one of my children. I loved him. I thought he was a smashing man, and I wish there were more of his kind about.
He was a great friend of mine, and at the moment Trish have become great friends of ours, so it's nice it continues on.
A journalist once asked me what I would like my epitaph to be, and I said, I think I would like it to be, he did very little harm. And that's not easy. Most people seem to me to do a great deal of harm. If I could be remembered as having done very little, that would suit me.